In this video, we're going to look in more detail at how you take a controller action and you actually pass values into it. At this point, we're focusing on the HTTP get verb and passing values into an action or calling an action simply using HTTP get. Now, in the last video, we went ahead and statically set our view model as a string, Kevin, and passed that into our view. We then picked it up on the other side of our view, and we just called, using our Razor syntax, we used the @ sign to say we're writing some C#, and then we said this dot model, referring to the model property off of our views kind of inherited class. So model here essentially is the same as this string Kevin, and then when everything was run, we got an output of hello Kevin. So now, how do we make it so that it's more dynamic? How do we make it so that we can pass any string value in and have it show up on the web page? Well, to do that is actually very simple. All that we need to do is we go through and we actually set up a input parameter here, and we'll say string name, and name becomes the variable that will be bound to that will pull the value in. And then further, we'll come here and then we'll say name. So we've now taken it from a constant static string into a variable. So we'll go ahead and save that. Technically, the code within our view will not change. We're still calling to that model, which is our string name, and we'll pull that model value out and present it on the page. Now, one more piece of information that we should probably accommodate for is we'll say if the string is empty, which means that there is no value, then we'll just default name to equal user. And that is to ensure that we always get a name showing up on the page, not just hello, comma. So we'll go ahead and do that. We'll do a build. And by default, it comes up hello user. Now, if we jump into our URL here, we'll see that we've got our IIS Express running. So we have localhost :1993, which is our port number, and our default route is home/index. So if we go home/index, we'll end up with the same page. But this URL without the home/index is implicit. Doing it with the home/index is explicit. And we need an explicit route in order for us to add what are called query string parameters. Now, when you perform gets, you can append parameters to the URL or as a query string. And you do that by doing question mark and then the name of the variable, which in our case is called name, equals, and then Kevin. And if you look around the internet, especially if you do a Google search, you'll see those show up in URLs. And this is the way that you pass parameters to your web server in the URL. So we'll go ahead and hit enter, and you'll see now that it says hello Kevin. We can change it again and say Steve. It'll say hello Steve. And what's happening here is that it's picking up that name variable and it's actually binding it to the name parameter of our action. So if you want to see how that works in tandem, I'm actually going to go ahead and add a breakpoint here in my code, and I'll do a side by side. Let's get that out of the way. And you'll see here that when I type in Bill and hit enter, we'll hit a breakpoint, and name actually contains the value Bill. So then this if statement runs and says, oh, there is a value, so it gets skipped. And then it'll just go down here and take name, cast it as an object, which is referred to as boxing, if you're curious. So it boxes our string into an object type and then passes it to our view. We can actually flip over to our view and do debug as well and put a breakpoint, and we'll go ahead and continue. And when we reach this line of code, we can mouse over this and we can mouse over model, and we'll see here that model equals the string value of Bill. So that then gets bound out to our page, and then we have hello Bill. So that is the basic essence of model binding within the .NET MVC framework. Now, there are additional degrees and layers that we'll get into in the next lecture video, talking about multiple parameters and how we can pass multiple parameters, and then how we can actually take all of those parameters and put them together into a single view model and make it so that we have a more concise and more flexible infrastructure for our applications.